While the whole attention of the world is towards the east of Ukraine, we almost forgot about the situation in the south, where recently Russians began to feel extremely insecure. And the reason for this, it is because they do not feel confident about holding the upcoming Ukraine's counteroffensive. And because of this and many other factors, the Russian army started to drastically change its military tactics, at least for the third time since the beginning of this war. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's go straight to the point and see some most recent footage. And our first video comes to us from the territory of Russia, Krasnodarsky Krai, where recently a Rosneft oil base has been attacked by Ukrainian drones. According to the Russian side, there were no significant damages, but this is the picture we received from this place this morning. Then we have a picture from this Yeisk airfield, also located in the Krasnodarsky region, and as you can see there was a big loud noise and then a fire. But according to once again Russian propaganda, the reason for this was just military training. And I don't know about you, but this does not look like it, right? Our next stop brings us extremely close to the capital of Russia, Moscow, where recently another drone has fallen just a dozen meters away from the infrastructure of Gazprom. Most likely this was once again a Ukrainian drone, UJ-22 airborne, and yes, once again according to Russian side, the range of such drones is only limited to 100 kilometers. But if we take a look at this map, which shows us the distance between the closest point in Ukraine and the place when this drone has fallen, it shows us 450 kilometers, which is 4.5 times more than the alleged Russian proposed range. So pretty much yes, it is either Russians who launched the drone themselves to blame Ukrainians, or somebody is lying. Alright, next we go to another major city in Russia, St. Petersburg, where recently the entire airspace above this city has been closed. And the reason for this it is because there was an unidentified object flying above St. Petersburg. Russians put even several fighter jets to intercept it, but they were never able to find it. And during this search mission, the entire airspace was closed for commercial flights, and people who were already inside the airports, the majority of their flights have been significantly delayed. But rest assured, the Ministry of Defense of Russia found a perfect explanation for this, and they said that this was just a practice of a Russian air defense system. And later on, to make it look even, I guess, more convincing, they said that the next day, March 1st, there'll be another test of the defense systems. And as we move back to the capital of Russia, recently these serious military vehicles have been spotted on the streets of Moscow, but it's just incredible. Russian propaganda found an excuse even for this. They said they're just starting to prepare for the victory parade, which is in 2 months. And I mean, if you obviously don't believe that these were the preparations for the victory parade, and this is just the Russian authorities double protecting themselves in case something similar happens in Moscow. If you're smarter than Russian propaganda in general, let's just like this video and subscribe to my channel. Believe me, it does help a lot, and if you also want to see how I live outside of YouTube, feel free to follow my Instagram. But okay, just a couple more words before we speak about the situation in the east, and now let's get back to some serious news. And first of all, as you can see right here, Ukrainian soldiers continue to be trained to use the NATO military vehicles, and they do it in the United Kingdom. Then we have several other reports that the German defense company Rheinmetall has already sent its air defense systems Sky Ranger and Skynex into Ukraine, and besides that, they were already spotted being active in the territory of this country. Then we have a video from the capital of Slovakia, Bratislava, where we can see approximately 3,500 missiles for the multiple launch rocket systems called Grad, and these are for Ukrainians. And talking about another important event which happened recently, which is these attacks against one of the major Russian planes located in Machulishi airfield in Belarus, today we have some new satellite images. If you remember previously, it has been mentioned that the Belarusian partisans attacked this plane using drones, and then right here on this satellite image we can see these black markings on this radar system on top and on its wings. At the same time, this plane has also been relocated from its original stationary position. And then right here we have a satellite picture of the very same plane just 1 week ago, and as you can see there are no such black markings, which basically allows us to assume that even though this plane has not been yet destroyed, it has definitely been targeted. Alright, and now as promised, let's really quick talk about the situation in the east. But first of all, let me show you just one video from the capital of Ukraine, Kiev. And as you can see right here, this last day there was some loud noises which were reported from this city. As we go to the east of Ukraine, according to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, recently Russians intensified their attacks across the entire Luhansk front line, and once again the main concentration of them was next to Svatovy and Kreminna highway. Reportedly Russians were attacking in 3 main directions to the west of Kreminna, but so far all of them were successfully repelled by Ukrainians. And by the way, speaking about Kreminna, recently I was able to find this 30-minute documentary with the first-person combat footage, interviews and everything exactly from this place, and it does have English subtitles. I left the link to this video on my Patreon, where there is still 1 week of free access, and all the other useful links can be found down below. Alright, and as you go more south to Bakhmut, which is obviously one of the most significant combat areas at this very moment, Russians reportedly were concentrating their attacks to the north of this settlement, but because of Ukrainian small counteroffensives, they were able to significantly slow down the Russian advancement. And at the same time, thanks to Ukrainian artillery, a Russian assault group has been destroyed to the south of this city. And then, as you can see from this map, this is how the Bakhmut front line has been changing in the last 24 hours, with the most significant progress of Russians obviously being to the northwest of this area. But most importantly, as reported directly by Ukrainian soldiers fighting inside Bakhmut, even though Russians are trying to surround them from 2 different directions, Bakhmut still stands. And we do have a couple more good news. The first one is that according to Anna Malyar, Ukrainians are right now sending reinforcements inside Bakhmut. And then, according to already Russian sources, the Western tanks Leopards 2 have been already spotted fighting inside Bakhmut. But nevertheless, according to the same Russian sources, them taking Bakhmut, which they have been already trying to do for last like 7 or 8 months, for some reason will allow them to swiftly capture the rest of Donetsk region. I don't know how long it will take them, but this is what they said. So I guess good luck. Right, next we go to Marinka, which has been another hot spot in the east, and as you can see from this video, there's pretty much nothing left from the city anymore. And then going even more to the south, Ukrainians reportedly were able to destroy 2 ammunition depots of Russians in Mariupol. But just once again, this is the video which shows how the condition of Mariupol is at this very moment in comparison to before the war. And it does not look like that this city has been liberated, quote unquote, by Russians. And yes, all the full versions with sound of every video that I'm using in today's episode will also be available on my Patreon. So yes, let's now really quickly talk about the situation in the south. And first of all, according to Ukrainian sources, they were able to destroy another Russian ammunition depot located in occupied Kherson region. And then according to Natalia Gumenyuk, Russians are trying to hastily mine these islands on Dnipro river. They try to build fortifications on the left side in this Kherson region and also in Crimea. It has even been mentioned by the locals that the Russian forces right now, they look very extremely insecure about their potential to maintain these positions and repel attacks of Ukrainians, which might come in the near future. And this statement is just once again indirectly confirmed by Natalia Gumenyuk, who previously said that all the activities that Russians are doing, building fortifications and defenses, they look very chaotic, spontaneous and pretty much fast. It has even been mentioned by the Ukrainian intelligence that Russians brought at least 150 highly qualified engineers from Chelyabinsk region located in Russia. They brought them to Crimea to help erect these fortifications as soon as possible. But wait, there is more, because then, according to the General Staff of Ukraine, they received the intelligence of Russian collaborators fleeing from Skadovsk and Oleshki. They're trying to run as far as possible to Crimea. So does this mean that all these fortifications and defense structures that the Russian soldiers are so rapidly building, does this mean that this is the attempt of them to slow down Ukrainians in case they do the counteroffensive to protect those important people of Russia? The local residents of Oleshki have also been reporting that the Russians were intensifying their looting activities, taking cars and then driving into the sunset. We have already seen something similar happening in the past, right before Russians were doing mass retreat, and let's see if this time history repeats itself. And so, as a result, probably because of this and many other factors, Russians are now also reportedly drastically changing their military tactics, for at least the third time since the beginning of this war. The initial report has been presented to us by the UK intelligence, which was one of the very first to note this difference in the strategy. According to them, back in 2014, whenever Russia seized the Crimea, the whole military tactics was based around trying to control its neighbor, which is obviously Ukraine. But later on, whenever Putin decided that he wants more, he declared a full-scale invasion on the east of Ukraine against Donbas region. Most likely this decision was taken under the impression that Russia will be able to win in this war in 3 days, which, as you can see, turned out to be completely fake news. Approximately in the middle of 2022, whenever Russian authorities realized that probably this invasion was not the best idea, they decided to politically seize the territories which they were already controlling by doing these so-called referendums. And later on, whenever even this idea failed in everyone's mind, except mind of Russian politicians of course, they switched their military tactics once again, which is to send waves after waves of Russian soldiers, mobilize people and send their military equipment into Ukraine, and to simply exhaust the Ukrainian forces. At this very moment it looks like that the main bet of the Russian military commandment is to pretty much tire Ukrainian army and to make the Western countries stop supporting Ukraine, because in their understanding, if we help Ukraine and we don't see a progress, what's the point of continuing to help? But honestly, this is just the way of thinking of the Russian authorities, who live in their own small little closed world, because we already had several statements by, for example, President Biden and the Prime Minister of the UK, Rishi Sunak, who said that their support to Ukraine will never stop, no matter what. And so yes, if you want to follow this war along with me all the way until the final day and my final video, which will be titled as Putin has surrendered, just please subscribe to my channel. It only takes one click. And if you want to support my work financially, please consider becoming my channel member, use the PayPal link, or become my Patreon, where there's still 1 week of free access. You can find all the other links to the right and down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи, and see you tomorrow.